Well, hello there, class, and welcome to Unit 4. I guess we're already halfway through, a little over halfway through. Believe it or not, next week is spring break, so that's why we've kind of taken it a little bit easy as we're easing our way into the final week of this unit before we take off for another week. This does go from the 18th of February through the 3rd of March, so you have until the end of this week to get all the questions and everything answered and responded to and read for this unit, and then next week you have nothing. So I don't know about you, but I'm going to spend next week catching up. So hopefully you have not been involved in a car accident. As I mentioned to you, I was, and that's actually set me back quite a bit. So just sore, been much more tired, and just things that you can expect that come with that. So my apologies for being a bit silent, but still trying to kind of work through that. But let me just say, I sent an email, I think you got that last week. Your responses were great, and one of the things that I love that was talked about is from Dorothy Sayers' essay. I thought that was fantastic. Some of the responses that were given, and even the way that you kind of see this tie-in, and what I love about your responses in that. Now, again, it's the two of you, but you're thinking really deeply about this content, and I love it. You're seeing, hopefully, at least what you're communicating to me, is that you're seeing this really kind of important and intricate connection between the reality of career development, career counseling, and that of vocation and calling. And I know that we kind of, I know that at a place like APU, people come from really all backgrounds, right? Walks of life, faith, no faith, and otherwise. And yet what we would say as an institution of higher learning is we are an evangelical Christian institution. So we're talking about this content from this kind of lens or perspective or grid, or call it worldview, of the Christian faith. And I think one of the things that we have done historically, I don't know how long we could kind of go back into this, although I do know in the Reformation days with Martin Luther, he was actually speaking against this, but we have in recent days come to a place where we have said there's sacred and that there's secular. And so if I'm a trash truck driver, or if I'm even a school teacher at a non-sectarian public institution, or a non-sectarian private institution, but it's not faith-based, or I'm I'm fill in the blank, they would say that's a secular job, right? I work as a barista at a coffee shop, or I work as a dancer on Broadway, whatever it is, right? So I saw this thing, and there's this, now this is extreme, but there's this thought in some people's mind that would say that the penultimate job is that of working in the pastorate, the clergy role, to work in ministry of some sort. And then this was, again, very extreme, but then it was like non-pastoral work and basically like illegal work, right? So there was like these three categories, and this is butchered a little bit, and it's very extreme, but the idea is that there's really only these realms of work that are important, and then everything else is like meh, which is similar to even when you get into kind of more of a philosophical approach to work, and you think about Socrates and Plato, and for a while that's why you had these monks and these nuns going to monasteries and nunneries, and they would actually be in this place where they would say, this is the ultimate work, to be working, doing the Lord's work. That's the most meaningful, sacred work, and everything else is not important, not sacred, not valuable in some ways, they would say. And then you had the philosophers, and they would say, no, this is the ultimate work, to be using our minds to think, and kind of poo-pooing and looking down upon those individuals that were doing manual labor, hard labor. All right, and so a lot of this gets into what Mike Rowe even talked about in the video that we watched, where he would say we've kind of in some ways declared war on this blue-collar type work. And I think in a lot of ways that's true. We have declared war, inadvertently or otherwise. We have still declared war on blue-collar work, because we think that this type of work that we're engaged in is actually much more meaningful and important work, when in fact it's just not the case at all. And so when you read Sayers and you read all these other articles, and you're getting kind of peppered with this idea of vocation, and vocation in the sense of what vocation is meant to mean, not vocation in the sense of how we define it these days. Vocation meaning, my job is my vocation. No, that's not it at all. It's very different than that. So what I'm hoping that you get out of that that arena of reading and discussion, and you continue in the Schwen and Bass book, is to think about, how can I bring this content to clients? So if you're meeting with a client, you're talking about career, similar to if you're meeting with a client talking about any sort of clinical psychology or counseling type approach or practice, we have to acknowledge that yes, all of those 5 elements of well-being are important, right? And they're who we are. They make up who we are. But there's also this element of one's spiritual side, right? There's this spiritual element. And you have people that say, I'm not religious, I'm just spiritual. There's something to the human body. There's something to the human psyche. There's this spiritual component. Similarly, there is something to us in our work. And I would say that because there are things that we would look at in our jobs and we go, that's not meaningful. I feel like I'm just kind of, pushing papers and pushing buttons and doing the same old thing. I'm on the, the hamster wheel over and over and over again. I'm part of the rat race, and it's just not fulfilling. Well, what is it about that? I think some work, it doesn't affirm one's dignity. I think we need to be careful. We don't give people dignity. Like, I don't look at somebody and say, I'm going to give you dignity. No, we affirm their dignity because we're all made as image bearers, made in the image of the creator of the universe. And in as much as that's true, we all have dignity in and of ourselves, this innate dignity that we've been given. So when I look at jobs, and actually if there are certain jobs that are dehumanizing, and they actually remove that recognition and affirmation of one's dignity, and that's never healthy. And yet we all have aspects of work we go, man, that's just not meaningful. So what is it about that? And here's this great foundational component of conversation that we get to engage in and ask those questions. What is it about your work that you don't find fulfilling? What is it about your work that you don't find meaningful? What is it about your work that you would like to change? What is it about past jobs that you've had that you actually enjoyed? And even as you hear me asking those questions, what you hopefully notice is I did not ask the word, why don't you like that? Why don't you like your job? And I stay away from that because in the coaching realm, and as much as we're offering some career counseling and development and consulting, we're doing more than anything. I would argue we're coaching our clients. We're coaching potentially students if we're in a higher ed or even a K through 12 setting. We're coaching them, and in coaching, we stay away from why because it sounds combative. It sounds aggressive. And so if you rephrase that, and what is it about work that you don't appreciate? That sounds a lot different than why don't you like that? So even the way that we approach the questions we ask, the way that we nuance the conversation that we're about to engage in, these are all important aspects. Realizing that, yes, we all need to work. Right? Money, unfortunately or fortunately or whatever, but it's the reality that money makes the world go round. We all need to make money to go buy things, to go buy food, to go buy clothing, to pay for shelter. Like, there's certain human needs that we have that cannot just be drummed up. We have to work. We have to do that. So work is something that's on most everybody's mind. Adults, otherwise, even kids. You're talking the other day. With my kids? What's your job? Your job right now is to be a kid. So when my daughter, my 4-year-old, was saying, "Daddy, you going to work today?" And I said, "Yeah." I looked at her and I said, "Ellie, are you going to work today?" And she's like, "I don't go to work." Did it real cute, of course, as a 4-year-old would. But my wife and I were saying, well, actually, you do. Your work right now is to play and to enjoy life and to learn and to soak things up like a sponge and to ask questions and to discover. We all have these different stations of vocation, as I think we talked about, Luther would make mention. We all have work. And sometimes our work is to be a student, as are some of you right now, or I should say all of you, but you also might be working full-time or part-time. Sometimes our work is to actually be an employee, to work. But we all have elements of work that we're doing. I think we need to phrase that. We need to actually think about rest in the weekend as something that we need to not necessarily, work. Like, I need to work to rest. Although there is something to be said about that biblically, about actively pursuing rest found in God. And that's a whole different conversation. But we have roles, responsibilities, and jobs to work and to rest. And to find work that's that's affirming of one's dignity, that's dignifying, that's humanizing, and that's beneficial and edifying to self and to other people. And I think that when we have these conversations and we approach them in the perspective of what is it about this work that you perhaps don't feel is giving you that, that's where I think some really important heart work and head work can take place. And you and I, we have an opportunity to be engaged in those conversations to make a difference in the lives of our students, of our clients, of our, whoever it is we're working with. It's a different approach, and I think it's really powerful. So anyway, we are, again, in the second week of Unit 4. That's kind of a recap of where we've been. This time around, we're looking at career counseling, the process, and the assessments, and all of that. You've got some great content that I hope you're enjoying in this unit. Tang, chapters 6 through 7, LibTAC, chapters 3 through 4, and then Schwen and Bass, part 3. LibTAC 321, number 2. So I'll respond to some more questions. I'll probably during the spring break make some response there. You'll do your discussion number 4, your case study number 4, and your exercise number 2 out of Tang. So there's been some great responses, some great content pieces. Really enjoying what I'm reading. It's, at least from the outside looking in, I'm seeing that there's some great takeaways, and you're really taking this stuff seriously. So keep up the great work. If I can be of help in any way, even with something maybe not related to this class, you got questions about career or work or things of that nature, just kind of want to run something by me, I'm happy to have that conversation with you as well. All right, so have a great rest of this week, and I guess the rest of this unit, and I hope that you have plans to work at pursuing rest over the spring break. Have a great rest of the week, and we'll see you online.